This crazy footage shows Quando Rondo's homie getting dragged out of a car, and the whole moment looks unreal. You see Quando losing it, pacing, yelling, trying to understand what just went down.
Oh. No!
His mind was spinning because the people who came for them had just taken his closest friend, someone he saw like a brother, and the whole scene was pure chaos. Back then, nobody knew who really ordered the hit, but now the truth is crawling out into the open, and it's shaking the whole rap world. Just wait until you see this next clip, where people claim Durk admits to something. The internet went wild the second this footage hit timelines.
Still, I don't know if people still say it. They used to say it, but you also mentioned a song, they'd be like...
Viewers said they couldn't believe what they were watching, especially with how sudden the attack on Quando's homie looked. On August 19, 2022, 5 masked men pulled up fast on Quando Rondo and his cousin Lil Pab, and they started letting off shots with zero hesitation.
No!
Quando was sitting at a gas station when the gunfire erupted, and the second the shots came flying, he dropped down inside the vehicle, trying anything he could to shield himself from the danger. The whole thing looked like a scene from a movie, and somehow, some way, Quando came out untouched. But his cousin Lil Pab wasn't so lucky, and that changed everything in seconds. As you can imagine, Quando was traumatized by what he saw, and the footage from the aftermath still has people talking today.
What was it?
I don't know.
The clip that claims to be CCTV shows the attack happening in real time. And right after the shots stop, you see Quando's reaction, and it's heartbreaking. He's confused, panicked, and you can tell his mind can't keep up with the reality in front of him. The moment officers opened the car door and pulled his cousin's body out, Quando completely breaks down and screams out in shock. Even though Quando survived, he was deeply shaken, and it shows. In the video, his arms are flailing, his face is twisted with fear, and he looks like someone who just saw his whole life collapse in one moment. His cousin Lil Pab, also known as Louis Pab, was only targeted because he was with Quando, and that makes the whole thing feel even colder. But here's where things get even more twisted. Lil Pab was supposed to be in court soon for some serious charges, but he never made it because he was taken out a week before the hearing. And it wasn't just any case. He was about to face a racketeering charge, basically a RICO situation, and those charges hit hard. Lil Pab, known on the street as Bandit Pablo, had a reputation across Georgia and wasn't some unknown name. His legal trouble dated back to 2019 when prosecutors said he and a crew went on a wild crime spree across the state. Investigators claimed the group broke into cars, committed burglaries, and stole vehicles.
Triggered by the Slide for Vaughn comments. Still, I don't know if people still say it. They used to say it, but you also mentioned a song. They'd be like, they be saying Slide for Vaughn, I think they trolling me. Yo, by the way, that song is fire, I ain't gonna lie.
For some reason, I just don't see comments no more.
But word on the street always said the list went way deeper than that. So yeah, Quando Rondo was rolling with people who lived fast and moved in dangerous lanes, but that's still dosing. To explain how this ties into Lil Durk, and that S where things take an even darker turn. Well, everything starts lining up now, because for the longest time, nobody really understood why Pab and Quando got ambushed. But after Durk's arrest, the picture is slowly forming in a way nobody expected. Pab had his own history, sure, and he definitely had people who didn't like him.
For some odd reason. I don't know. Might be the water.
But this attack wasn't tea about old beef or some hidden feud. Investigators say it connects straight to him being close with Quando Rondo, and that twist has people stunned. Just recently, a federal agent swept in and snatched up 5 men from Chicago who investigators believe were tied to the shooting. These men are now facing conspiracy to commit murder and retaliation charges linked to King Von's death. Ow! And the whole situation finally answers questions that hung in the air for nearly 2 years. But everyone's asking the same thing.
Lil Durk been picked up by the feds. I don't know if he's been charged with nothing. Probably questioning it. They put in OTF and a lot of things. But I heard somebody named OTF Jam. They said they've been calling him a rat. And basically he said, okay, I'm a rat.
Why did it take this long for authorities to move? And why now? Before we get to the timing, let's break down what investigators say happened on the day Lil Pab lost his life. According to the indictment, a group of suspected gang members from Chicago allegedly traveled all the way to Los Angeles with one goal: to target Quando Rondo. The group is identified as OTF, which also happens to be the name of Durk's music label, and for years Durk has insisted OTF is not a gang. But law enforcement clearly sees things differently. It also didn't help his case that many of his tracks talk about street situations, and prosecutors are now using that as part of their theory about OTF's activity.
Well, watch this. Watch this. That's all this information that I know. Rat this, I'm gonna tell this, I'm gonna tell that. My video earlier, I told y'all, man, if somebody say Durk name, that's all it's gonna take to say that man's name. And obviously, like I said earlier too, if they come, they coming.
Investigators say the alleged members booked flights from Chicago to LA using a credit card connected to one of the individuals. And after receiving information about Quando's location, they decided to make their move fast. One man named Grant is accused of overseeing the whole plan, and prosecutors say he even booked his own separate private jet flight from Miami to California to coordinate everything.
Somebody telling, somebody from OTF, somebody OTF affiliated, somebody that know enough information on Lil Durk and his crew. And it's messed up. That's why I be saying, I don't care how much money you got, what's going on, man, these people will throw you under the bus.
They claim Grant arranged vehicles, weapons, and fake license plates so the crew could move around without attracting attention while they carried out the hit. After the shooting, investigators say the suspects went to a nearby burger spot to talk about the payment for the job, then returned to Chicago like nothing happened. Meanwhile, Quando was left grieving his cousin, while the internet argued about who they thought was behind the attack.
Maybe Durk felt it already. He felt that it was coming. It was something coming. He knew something was coming. You know how he knew something coming? Because everybody kept saying he's trying to dodge that Rico. Everybody been saying this. So if everybody else knew it, you think he wasn't in his head? Mama Duck suing him. Everybody.
Many fans believed the situation was connected to what happened with Von. But nobody had real proof, and everything stayed in rumors until investigators decided to make their move. The people accused of planning the attack may have thought the case went cold. But the feds were quietly collecting every detail, watching and waiting for the right moment to strike hard. Another wild twist is that Durk was preparing to drop a brand new album, but suddenly pushed the release date to the end of November. Some people online are saying he thinks he'll be freed by then, but based on what authorities claim they've uncovered, that sounds more like hope than reality.
So let's back up, because I know you and Durk was cool. Obviously, he was on your album, and y'all was cool, and you was cool with Von. So that night when you was in the parking lot, what led up to you even being in the parking lots?
Investigators reportedly have a heavy amount of evidence, and on top of that, Reese said to have an informant, someone extremely close to him, who gave them information and changed the direction of the case completely. Before all this came crashing down, Durk's future looked unstoppable. He had a new album on the way. His record had just been wiped clean, and Chicago literally handed him the key to the city. He was moving like someone who had fully leveled up. The shooting was 2 years behind him, which probably made him think whatever happened back then had faded away for good. But the past has a way of circling back at the worst moment. Now, people are shocked at the idea he could have played a role in any of this, but to some, the signs were always there. The online world had been pointing fingers for years, saying certain things didn't sit right, but the police took their time building a case strong enough to move on.
Man, from my understanding, I don't want nobody to think I'm chasing clout, bringing their name up and stuff, but
Right.
At the end of the day, man, I'm like, it ain't about no clout. I got, man, Like when people be saying like people chasing clout and stuff, how, man, like rich.
2 years ago, the internet was on fire with debates and theories as everyone tried to figure out who targeted Quando Rondo and why it happened in such a calculated way. One person on Reddit went into full detective mode and put together a breakdown of what they believe truly happened, and the way they mapped it out had the entire internet staring at the screen. This online investigator basically did what many said the authorities hadn't done yet, connecting dots and pulling up old posts that suddenly looked a lot more important than people first realized.
From my understanding, ma'am, it was a love. I had a relationship with the big bro. Not want to say his name. Not, you feel me? You know what I'm talking about.
cool.
The dude that was on my album.
Okay.
Like, it was all love with us from my understanding.
I've heard you say positive things about him.
The first major clue pointing toward OTF involvement came from this story Quando posted back in 2022. At first glance, it looked small, but the details inside it raised real questions. In the post, Quando says, "I'm my own man. I laid my flag down. I'm not NH. Y'all ain't gonna ride for real. There's no sense of me being a part of y'all's shit." Even though the language is rough, what he's talking about is his split from the Crips, a group he had been publicly connected to for years. That's why he was always wearing blue. He repped the neighborhood Rolling 60s, the same LA set that the late Nipsey Hussle came from.
Durk never once charged him for a feature.
Dude never charged me for a feature, none of that, knowing he could have. Like, I looked at it, I'm like, this the big bro. Like, big bro, a legend. Like, this how all the young rappers coming up in the game looking at him like, been listening to him since I've been 12.
That detail mattered because Quando was basically calling out his own crew, saying they didn't support him, and the idea that they might have turned their back on him created a wild ripple. Once that post hit the streets, it caused a shockwave because leaving the Crips isn't something you do with a simple announcement. There's a ritual people expect called getting jumped out, which means a brutal beating too. Officially leave the gang, and Quando refused to go through it. That refusal caused real tension, and people noticed certain members weren't happy at all. One person named Jay Stone spoke up online and said, "You can't drop your flag and say you're not NH. No mo. Niggas go to the hood and get you put off. Don't cry now. We lose homies all the time. Not everybody gonna ride." He was a goofy internet banger anyway. Even though the wording is harsh, it shows how serious the backlash was.
So I'm letting this group come by. Next thing you know, it hit me. You feel me? Boom, bam. Man, like, I lie to you not, man. I lie to you not. Like, it's like I had an out-of-body experience.
Then another late rapper, Julio, chimed in and added his own thoughts, saying, "Dog homeboy died in Cali. He trying to squash beef and throw his flag in. It's too late for that nephew." These messages weren't just public shots. They painted a picture of someone who stepped out of a serious situation and left people angry. At first, none of this seemed tied to Pab's death, but when you look closer, the connections hit different. The Crenshaw area of LA is home to a section of the Rolling 60s known as Score Gang, and this is where things get interesting. One of their IG pages posted a story showing Durk allegedly linked up with them, which shocked people because Quando and Durk were known to be enemies. So the question became, why would that set welcome someone tied to their enemy's rival? With all that pressure on him, it suddenly made sense why Quando dropped his flag. Too many sides were closing in, and he didn't feel protected. Then things got even louder when Durk dropped his track Aha, and there's a line where he says, "I can have your homie set you up his ass a middleman," and fans instantly believed he was talking about Quando Rondo. The timing, the bars, the tension, everything lined up in a way people couldn't ignore. And then there's this next piece, and it's one of the wildest parts of the whole situation.
His chain was snatched off his neck, and he had $30,000 stolen from him, and they stole the vehicle he was driving. You see Mr. Banks' arm out the window firing several shots at the victim, towards the victim.
An OTF member posted an IG story that showed they seemed to know Pab had been hit in the head before that detail was even released to the public. That instantly made people look at everything differently because it hinted that certain people were aware of things long before the world found out. And believe it or not, this ISNT, the only thing people are pointing to, there's a whole list of moments that are now being re-examined with heavy suspicion. But the clearest one is the interview Durk did with academics. Back when it dropped, Nobody thought anything of it. People laughed, joked, and moved on. But now that interview is being watched like a piece of evidence. When Durk was arrested, the clip resurfaced everywhere, and suddenly everyone saw it in a new light. During the interview, academics asked him about the Slide for Vaughn campaign.
Durk, yo, I'm reacting to the new song, bro. It's really good.
You like it?
Really, really good, bro. I have a question though.
Yeah.
In the video, I see a bunch of mug shots. Is that you?
Yeah, all my mug shots like in my past.
You been in jail?
That ain't a good thing.
A running joke online where people questioned whether Durk would avenge his friend, and Durk's response made academics freeze up. The moment Durk gave that answer, academics' face said everything. He looked like he'd just cracked a code. He stared, blinked, and then hit Durk with another question once he realized what that answer might really mean. Now that the situation has changed, the interview hits totally different.
Like, how many times though, bro?
How many mug shots up there?
Yeah, nah, bro. I love the song though, bro. I'm really happy you dropped this. It's very good. I'm gonna add it to my music for sure.
Man, I appreciate you've been locked in.
Yeah. Well, I'll chop it up with you later, bro.
I love.
All right, love.
And the prosecution will definitely have it pulled up in the courtroom because it frames Durk's mindset in a whole new way. Is any of this shocking? Not really. Because people have been saying for a long time that OTF and Von S crowd had major issues with Quando. What people didn't realize was how close everything might have been tied together and how directly. Durk may have been involved according to what investigators are claiming. But the biggest twist in all of this is how Durk allegedly got caught. Because according to what's being discussed online, it wasn't the police outsmarting him. It was someone close who gave up information. And this wasn't just any person. The person people are pointing to is someone Durk trusted, someone inside his circle, someone named OTF Jam. Online reports claim OTF Jam wore a wire for 12 full years, feeding information to authorities, and people can't believe it. What makes this even more suspicious is that Jam's sentence was reportedly 12 years, and he was suddenly released just after the shooting involving Quando and his cousin. That timing has people raising eyebrows everywhere. Once this came out, the internet exploded with comments. Some people said Durk even accidentally implicated himself in lyrics from his songs. One track he talks about doing a mission in Cali and being stuck in traffic, and listeners connected that line to what allegedly happened with Pab. Others pointed out how the internet went from clowning Durk for not sliding for Vaughn to now clowning him for being arrested. The energy flipped instantly. One comment summed it up perfectly, saying they made fun of Durk for not sliding for Vaughn. Now the same people will laugh at him for going down for it. Another user saw the situation with the wire and said, "A wire for multiple years they cook," meaning if the wire rumor is true, the authorities might know way more than anyone expected. If there really was an informant inside OTF, then nobody knows how deep the information goes or what law enforcement has pieced together. So now the focus turns to this mysterious figure. Who exactly is OTF Jam, and why would he cooperate? Well, another Chicago rapper stepped forward with his own version of events, and what he revealed caught everyone off guard. The rapper is King Yella, and he claimed that OTF Jam implicated Durk in the murder of Lil Po, which adds another layer of shock to an already unbelievable situation. Yella then breaks it down even further, saying that if anyone inside OTF even breathes Durk's name the wrong way, that alone could be enough for investigators to tear everything open. He basically said one slip-up could be the final push that sends everything crashing down. Yola followed that by saying this arrest wasn't random at all. Somebody had to have given information, because the timing and details are way too specific to be luck. He even added that he feels like Durk saw this coming long before the public did. According to him, Durk's behavior and the way he moved in the months leading up to this made it seem like he knew some serious pressure was on the way. Everything people are saying online lines up with the idea that someone from inside the circle might VA cooperated, and the internet is locked in on one name. Most people didn't even realize that when OTF Jam got out of prison, he dropped a track called Federal Freestyle, and no, that's not a joke, that's actually the title. The wildest part? The song was uploaded on Durk's official YouTube channel, which had fans in disbelief. If that wasn't a massive red flag, nobody knows what else could be. And as expected, the comment section went crazy the moment people connected the dots. One user wrote, I jam turn your wire up. It's my she-feds, basically clowning the whole situation. Another person said, came home wearing a wire and still made this track. NGL. That's some nasty work, and that comment alone had thousands of likes. Since Jam was released right before the song dropped, and since people believe he might have been wired the moment he stepped out of jail, the timing is suspicious in every direction. On top of that, Wack 100 also addressed the situation during his interview with DJ Vlad, adding even more fuel to what people already suspected. Wack said, he did 12 years, got out. I said he kept it real. DJ Vlad added more context too, explaining that Jam served a 12-year sentence for an attempted murder case from 2010. He also pointed out that Jam got released in 2022, the same year Pab was killed, and that timing had everyone looking sideways. Since that release, people claim Jam was allegedly wearing a recording device to collect information involving Durk and OTF, which is exactly what many believe led to the current situation. Some people online are now saying Jam fed to the police, and because of that, the FBI had time to build a full strategy behind the scenes. It looks like authorities weren't rushing. They were watching, collecting, listening, and stacking evidence before making any moves. Even though it's too early to predict the outcome, the picture being painted doesn't look good for Durk at all. He was close to leaving everything behind and focusing fully on music, but the past appears to be clawing its way back to the surface. So now it's time to rewind the story and look at what started this whole chain reaction. Quando Rondo versus King Von. Almost everybody knows about the beef between Von and Quando, but most people don't actually understand the root of it. The deeper story goes all the way back to tension between King Von and NBA Youngboy. And once those two had problems, their entire circles got dragged into it. According to a user on Reddit who broke everything down, the situation began in a way nobody expected. Quando and Von were originally cool, close enough that their even backstage footage floating around online showing them hanging out like real friends. So how did they go from laughing together to one of the most talked about conflicts in recent rap history? Well, when Von got out of jail, he went live and said he liked Youngboy's music, and there are multiple videos of him singing Youngboy's tracks online. That's where things started to shift, and little by little the tension built up until it eventually snapped. But then something shifted behind the scenes, and everything flipped overnight. A live stream popped up showing King Von sitting in a car, suddenly calling out Youngboy and saying his raps were capped. Nobody knows exactly what caused Von to switch up like that, but the streets have their own theories. Some say Von reached out for a feature, Youngboy didn't respond, and that silence created tension that never went away. Things got even messier when Von posted a picture standing next to Janya, Youngboy's child's mother, and that image alone ignited the whole situation even worse. Jania later said they were just working on music, but by then, the spark already hit the powder. Not long after, Youngboy posted a picture with the caption, "I'ma have my son, your daughter, since you trolling," and that sent fans into a frenzy. And the situation kept climbing. Youngboy dropped a snippet with Asian doll Von SX, and that pushed Von to jump on Twitter with some harsh comments like, "That new, y'all got garbage. Try again, MF. And I got some shit on y'all baby moms that would make you not want to claim your kids." Around this same time, Quando Rondo got dragged into it when Von mocked him over his first week album sales, and that added another layer to the chaos. From there, the bond between all sides shattered completely. Von made it clear he was cool with several of Youngboy's rivals like Frito Bang and Jada Youngin, and that only added tension. Then, just one day before Von lost his life, he sat down with academics and said there wasn't T-real music beef unless somebody got killed. He didn't know those words would come back in the most tragic way possible. So the reason Quando was pulled into this entire chain reaction is simple. NBA Youngboy was like a mentor to him, while Durk played that role for Von. After Von was shot, huge pressure landed on Quando's shoulders, and people online instantly blamed him. So he tried to clear the air through an interview with Angela Yee. The interview opened with him explaining how he, Von, and Durk started off cool and actually had a song together. After that, Quando begins breaking down what he says really happened that night. He gives his timeline piece by piece, explaining the moments before the fight, the confusion, and the split-second decisions. At that point, there had been clear retaliation against him, at least none the public knew of. So Quando tried to keep things calm in how he spoke. Instead of naming Durk, he referred to him as Big Bro, which showed he didn't want to escalate anything further. He then explained that unlike some people in his own circle, Durk never charged him for a feature, and that respect meant something to him back then. They really did have a good relationship before everything spiraled out of control. But none of that changes the reality of what happened. Von approached Quando through the first punch, and the moment turned deadly in seconds when Quando's homie reacted. Here's the CCTV footage from that night. It shows Von in a white shirt walking straight up to Quando, who's leaning on the side of a car. Von starts swinging relentlessly, catching Quando off guard, and you can see Quando trying to move away, but barely getting a chance to react. That's when his friend, Lil Tim, stepped forward and fired shots, ending the fight instantly and changing both groups' lives forever. In his interview with Angela Yee, Quando described the punch as an out-of-body experience, saying he didn't even fully understand what was happening until everything exploded around him. The whole moment became one of the most defining clips in modern rap history, and from that instant forward, there was no turning back. Quando was supposedly taking a nap inside the car while waiting for one of his friends, completely unaware that anything was about to happen. He stepped out for just a moment, and that's when Von rushed him and threw the first punches. Once Quando was attacked, everything unfolded in seconds. His best friend Lil Tim, whose real name is Timothy Leaks, immediately reacted, stepped forward and fired shots, and that split-second decision changed rap history forever. Right after the tragic event, Tim was charged with murder, but eventually he was cleared of all charges. That outcome sent Von's team into outrage, and Von's ex-girlfriend even went on Twitter saying because the police said Tim ain't kill him, the police did, showing how emotional and chaotic those days were. Even though Quando was basically a victim of a sudden assault, Von's associates never let it go. Many believe Durk especially took it personally because of how deep his bond with Von went. Durk and Von's history goes far beyond music. They knew each other since childhood, and their past includes real street moments. In 2019, both of them were arrested together for a shooting that still gets talked about today. On February 5, 2019, a man named Alexander Witherspoon was shot outside a restaurant in Atlanta known as the Varsity, and prosecutors said a Jeep and $30,000 in cash were also taken. Witherspoon survived, but he was left with a gunshot wound to his leg, making the situation extremely serious. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors laid out what the victim claimed happened step by step. They even stated there was video footage of Durk pulling the trigger, which shocked everyone following the case. But Durk and Von's lawyer argued that the footage didn't clearly show Durk's face, creating enough doubt to fight back the charges. The case gained massive attention because it involved two major Chicago rappers tied to one of the most talked-about street movements in the world. Police in Atlanta were so worried that Chicago's gang activity might be spreading south that they actually flew in a police chief from Chicago to speak in court. During the hearing, both Von and Durk were denied bail and hit with charges like aggravated assault, attempted murder, and street gang activity, among others. Even though the shooting happened in February 2019, Durk's arrest warrant wasn't issued until May. When it dropped, Durk turned himself in and even released a song about the situation. Von never lived to see the verdict because he passed away before the case concluded, but eventually Durk was cleared of every charge years later. But here's where the story twists again. There was another shooting both Durk and Von were linked to, except this one happened after Von was already gone, even though people claim it was planned while he was still alive. This case involved FBG Duck, a Chicago rapper with long-running tension with Von, Durk, and O-Block. Duck's death changed everything in Chicago. After he was killed, his family publicly blamed Von and Durk, saying the beef ran deeper than just music. And only weeks before Durk's most recent arrest, FBG Duck's mother filed a brand new lawsuit claiming both Durk and Von were responsible for planning the attack that took his life on the Gold Coast. The timing of this lawsuit and Durk's arrest happening so close together only made rumors grow louder. The shooting that took Duck's life happened in broad daylight in 2020, right after Von was killed by Quando Rondo's friend, Lil Tim. Duck was standing outside a Dolce & Gabbana store when multiple shooters pulled up and opened fire. He died at the scene, turning the area into a full crime scene instantly. But his auntie, the only one who got hit, his girlfriend and one of his friends were also shot in the attack, leaving the city in shock. People believe Von and Durk might have been tied to Duck's case too, and just like the situation with Quando, rumors spread that Duck had a bounty on his head. The lawsuit filed by Duck's family doesn't just target Durk and Von, It also targets everything connected to them, including their estates and business interests. Duck was also from Chicago, but his death stemmed from a long-running feud between his crew, known as Vil, which is connected to the Gangster Disciples. For years, the GDs and the Black Disciples have had one of Chicago's most public rivalries. No block is tied to the Black Disciples. This tension had gone on for decades, but things started heating up heavily right before both Von and Duck were killed. What really pushed everything to the edge was Von and FBG Duck trading diss tracks back and forth, turning the entire feud into something everyone in the city could feel rising. Even though Von lost his life before Duck did, he's still accused by many of placing a bounty on Duck prior to his death. That accusation now feels similar to what Durk is dealing with, and it places Von right in the center of these situations. At this point, it's impossible to talk about the chaos without looking at Von's background too, because whether people liked him or not, he had a reputation that followed him everywhere. Back in his early teens, Von started getting pulled deeper into street life. And once that path took hold, the accusations and stories around him only grew. As he got older, he was tied by rumor to several violent incidents, although many details were never proven in court and mostly lived through street talk. One of the reasons fans say his music exploded the way it did, he used gritty storytelling, often dropping cryptic bars about situations Chicago locals whispered about. By the time Von passed, people online had connected him to all kinds of stories, some true, some exaggerated, some unproven. And the internet even gave him dramatic nicknames that weren't based on real court rulings. The myth around him became bigger than the man himself, turning him into a figure people debated constantly. Durk also carried his own history. He grew up around the same environment, lost many friends to the streets, and spent years building his name while fighting legal problems. Not long before Durk's arrest, he went live with Aiden Ross and openly talked about the rough past he came from. He didn't brag. He spoke about how far he'd come and the things he survived, trying to distance himself from the reputation he built during his come-up. But now, with everything happening around him, the internet is dragging those old moments back into the spotlight again, twisting them into fresh theories every day. Aiden then asks Durk how many times he's been to jail, and the question hits hard because Durk pauses for a moment before answering. It reminds everyone watching that this isn't the first time he has been in the system, and from the way he carried himself during that live stream, it felt like he was hoping it would be his last. You could sense he was trying to move away from the chaos, trying to grow past the street energy that followed him through his whole career. A lot of people from Chicago who came up with him are also trying to leave that life behind, switching from survival mode to business mode, focusing more on family and music than anything violent. So if Durk manages to beat this case, and that is a massive if, some believe he might finally step away from everything that dragged him into trouble over the years. But before he can even think about that future, he has to deal with what's right in front of him. And the truth is brutal. The feds say they're holding mountains of evidence, informant statements, travel records, digital traces, and alleged connections that paint a very dangerous picture for him. With everything stacking up, the situation does not look good at all. And even people who support Durk are worried because cases like this don't just disappear overnight. If this flips the wrong way, it could put a permanent pause on everything he built. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into stories like this, you can hit one of the cards on your screen to keep watching, because this situation is far from simple, and every layer makes the story even wilder.